Good morning, Rush Creek, and welcome to LSRC Morning Announcements.
I'm Brynn, and this is Meredith.
Hey, Brynn, it smells great in here. Do you think that's our lunch?
Yes, I think it is. The lunch is cheese or pepperoni pizza with pasta salad, green beans, veggies, and fruit. And the alternate is a yogurt cup with string cheese and crackers.
I'm really excited for Halloween. Can you tell me a scary joke?
Okay, why are skeletons bad liars?
I don't know. Why?
Because you can see right through them.
Ha ha ha.
I really like chocolate cake, and it reminds me of the birthdays. Do you know who they are?
Yes, I do. They are Teddy and Mrs. Paul's class and Cameron and Mrs. Paul's class.
Over the weekend, too,
Madison and Mrs. Gilmore's class.
Ben and Miss Marcia's class, and it's my birthday over the weekend, too.
Oh, really? Happy birthday.
I hope it's nice on Halloween, like it is today.
The high is 69 and the low is 49. It's a great day to be outside.
Special announcement. Here are the poster winners for the book fair.
Students, please come to the Media Center after morning announcements to collect their poster.
They are Teddy and Mrs. Paul's class,
Jordan and Mrs. Gilmore's class.
Carson and Mrs. Gilmore's class,
Braden and Mrs. Kettner's class.
Reese and Miss Tenuzo's class,
Aiden and Mrs. Loren's class.
Abby and Mrs. Loren's class,
Sean and Mrs. Winter's class.
Weston and Mr. Williams' class,
Hayden and Mrs. Elbert's class.
Grady and Mrs. Loren's class,
Nafal and Mr. Fulton's class.
Brandon and Mrs. Prince's class,
Abby and Mrs. Wyland's class.
Lauren and Mrs. Riddle's class,
Grace and Mrs. Brynn's class.
Molly and Mrs. Kettner's class,
Pretend and Mr. Fulton's class.
Katrina and Miss Westrum's class,
Allison and Mrs. Nova's class.
Gabrielle and Miss Tenuzo's class,
Fiona and Mrs. Vergashi's class.
Miley and Miss Loren's class,
Rylan and Mrs. Cox's class.
Bennett and Mrs. Flanagan's class,
Mason and Mrs. Loren's class.
Owen and Mr. Gracio's class,
Connor and Mr. Felton's class.
Ben and Mrs. Paul's class,
Avery and Mr. Williams' class.
and Lily and Mr. Schmidt's class.
Special announcement.
LSRC, feed me, Janelle.